Well, the Flash has come and gone in a flash, and with it, the DCEU. Kinda, except not really yet, right? The Flash marks a shift for DC as it moves away from the Synder-verse and into the Gunn-verse, starting with the first DC Universe hero, Blue Beetle, even though Blue Beetle's movie isn't going to be the first DC Universe movie. That's going to be Superman Legacy with David Corenswet. Huh? Okay. Then there's the matter of this Aquaman 2 movie. Is it a Black Widow situation? Is it yet another closing chapter for the DCEU, like The Flash sort of is? Is it meant to be a way to bring Momoa into the Gunn-verse? One of the only things that I even know about it is that it's apparently a standalone movie, even though it's a sequel. Which is on brand, really, because DC's a certified clusterfuck at this point. I mean, I actually give a shit about this superhero stuff. Can you imagine what normal people think about all this? They don't. Which in a lot of ways could be good for DC moving forward. Honestly, what they need to do is hit the brakes in theaters, release Blue Beetle and Aquaman 2 on Max, and then do their best to come back in 2 years with Superman, while praying the whole time that somehow by that point we'll all have forgotten about this failed experiment. And a failure is what you could call this. The Flash somehow managed to perform worse at the box office than Black Adam did on its opening weekend, and then a week later found itself barely inching out a naked Jennifer Lawrence movie, before Across the Spider-Verse reasserted its dominance over it once again. And it doesn't exactly look like The Flash is destined to become some kind of cult classic either, eventually winning over the hearts and minds of the public. No, for the most part, this movie elicited reactions that ranged from disgust to apathy to amused confusion. Really though, who was this movie made for in the first place? General fans of The Flash? Fair enough, but it's not for the Synder-verse guys. They see The Flash as a post-mortem event for the DCEU, not even worth acknowledging, and it's not for anyone who's anticipating Gunn's DC Universe either. None of the events in The Flash are likely to carry over into the future projects at DC, so most people, it seems, just decided to skip it. As for general audiences, it turns out that they did have a little bit of a problem supporting a movie that's led by an infamous criminal. Who'd have guessed? Mainly though, The Flash just came out at the worst possible time that it could have. Waning fan support for DC, combined with Ezra Miller's crime spree, combined with this now being the fourth multiverse superhero movie to come out in the last 2 years, it all combined to flop The Flash. It doesn't help either that the plot is barely coherent. It opens with Barry Allen, the Flash, working to get his dad out of jail for the murder of his mom, this time with new video evidence that's been provided by Batman. The evidence isn't enough to exonerate Barry's dad, though, so the Flash gets the bright idea to run back in time and prevent his mom's murder in the first place. Remember the Justice League movie when the Flash ran back in time for like 2 seconds? Well, in this movie, he can run back in time as far as he likes.
Why?
So Barry goes back in time and changes the events of the day that his mom is murdered slightly, and then speeds back to the present day, but while returning to the present, he's knocked off course by a mysterious dark speedster. As a result, the Flash finds himself in the not-so-distant past and discovers that his plan did work with his mom alive and well. He also discovers a younger version of himself, and the two Barrys find out that they have very different lives. One major difference between them is that young Barry doesn't work at the same lab that present-day Barry did when he got his powers in the first place. Fearful of creating a time paradox where Barry is no longer the Flash, the Barrys go and recreate the fateful accident, but ironically in the process, as young Barry gains the Flash powers, present-day Barry loses them. Then General Zod shows up, and just like in Man of Steel, he asks Earth to deliver the Kryptonian, which is when present-day Barry learns that there is no Superman in this timeline. There is, however, a Batman, so they seek out a retired Bruce Wayne, played by Michael Keaton, who reluctantly agrees to help the Barrys. Batman tracks down the Kryptonian, who's being kept in a Russian Siberian facility. It turns out to be Supergirl. They rescue her, return to Wayne Manor, where they once again recreate the accident that gives Barry his Flash powers after failing twice, but then working the third time. And the two Flashes, Bat Keaton and Supergirl, go and take on Zod. But the discount Justice League fails, Batman and Supergirl are killed, and Zod and his army win the day. The two Flashes then begin to rewind time in an attempt to change the outcome of the battle, but after failing over and over again. Well, 2 times. Present day Barry tries literally 2 times to change the battle. He becomes convinced, though, that they're never going to win. Young Barry won't accept it, though, and continues to rewind time until eventually we see him transform into the dark speedster that attacked present day Barry near the start of the movie. So then this new dark Barry tries to stab present day Barry, but young Barry sacrifices himself to save present day Barry, and as a result of time paradox shenanigans, dark Barry disappears, having accidentally deleted himself. Present day Barry then returns to the day of his mother's murder to make things right by allowing her to die. And then for some reason, he screws the timeline up again by adjusting circumstances around his dad so that he gets exonerated in his present day trial. Present day Barry then returns to the present day and discovers that once again he's created an alternate timeline with George Clooney as Batman this time. So he goes out drinking with Jason Momoa's Aquaman and honestly appears pretty content with the timeline he's living in, given that he has his dad back.
Not confused at all.
What the actual fuck, man? I have so many questions beyond the insanity that is the bare bones plot of this movie. What were those CGI babies? Why the hologram of Christopher Reeves? How many scenes of the Flash getting his powers do you need? Were 2 Ezra Millers really a wise choice? George Clooney? Really? Fitting another Batman into this thing was more important than having a satisfying ending with Keaton's Batman and Sasha's Supergirl? The most impressive thing about The Flash is that it sums up perfectly how I feel about the entirety of the DCEU. Cool ideas with beloved characters collected into a disjointed universe that's being held together with downright sloppy writing. Flash probably could have been a successful movie if it had come out 8 years ago, but it didn't. It came out in 2023, and as a result, it's a floundering, awkward mess that only further confuses DC's continuity even more. What universe have we ended up in at the end of this movie? What happened to the one we knew? Where is DC headed now? The biggest shame of this movie, though, is all of its wasted potential. Sasha Calle is great in the role of Supergirl. For the 15 minutes that you get to see her play it, and Keaton is by far the highlight of the whole movie returning as Batman. But my personal favorite thing about The Flash is the fact that it's this weird homage to Back to the Future. First, you've got the basic plot of this movie, Barry going back in time and altering events of the past that involve his parents, and then you've got the resolution of this movie with Barry ending up in an alternate timeline that is slightly different, but ultimately better for him, just like it is for Marty at the end of Back to the Future. Hell, both movies even have a lightning-based experiment that needs to take place at a specific time in the plot. See, that's the problem with The Flash, though. The best thing about it is that it was traced and templated off the skeleton of a much better movie, one that people actually like, and that ain't good. Which is why my blunt opinion of The Flash is that it's just not worth your time. If you'll learn one thing from this movie, it's that the time you've spent won't ever come back.